Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dima from the Miners Weekly, and today I am so delighted to be joined by Jack Kelly, who is a fantastic journalist covering Fulham, which is the destination of our fantastic talent, Kevin. And yeah, I just got in touch with Jack, and I thought this would be a great episode for me to do with him because obviously there's lots of Fulham fans want to know about Kevin and what he brings to the club. I think some of Shakhtar fans obviously would be interested to think about how I think Kevin will do, and Jack's opinion about how he fits in the team. And obviously, there's a bit of shared history with our clubs, with Fulham knocking us out all the way out in 2010 from the Europa League, with two fantastic but also tragic for us matchups. So yeah, uh, I think it's a great opportunity. So, Jack, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you. This is going to be great fun. I can't wait to hear and learn more about Kevin.
Brilliant. So, I think the way this is going to work is I will just share my opinions about what I think about Kevin, how I think he will fare, give you a bit of a background on him, and then obviously, if any point you want to jump in and ask any questions,
Sure.
please do. Obviously. So I will start perhaps as with a bit of a background story on him. So Kevin is a left winger that we bought from Palmeiras in winter 23-24. And actually, he was meant to be the replacement for Mykhailo Mudryk that we were looking for so long. We bought another left winger, Neverton, who never quite lived up to the hype, unfortunately. And also, Kevin was our first marquee signing since the start of the full-scale invasion by Russia. And it was a very difficult transfer to perform, obviously, because he was one of the first players who came to Ukraine after the war started. And I mean, fair play to him. I have a lot of respect for him because I don't know if I would have done it, but obviously he saw it as an opportunity for his career and went ahead with it. So he took a few months to adapt, like naturally all Brazilians do, especially when you come in winter, when you come from sunny and warm Brazil to temperatures like -10 and playing on, even in Ukrainian Premier League, a lot of the quality of the pitches are, I would say, equivalent to Sunday League in the UK. So it takes quite a bit of adjustment. And to be honest, he looked quite shaky on his debut. So his debut was against Marseille in the Europa League, and I remember quite a few fans thinking, "Oh, what have we got here? We paid 12 million for this guy, and he hasn't shown anything." But last season, I think he became undoubtedly a team leader after his very quick and successful development. And I think something that's worth noting about Kevin as well is he's had these amazing performances over the course of the last 1.5 years he played for us. But last year was our club's worst season, arguably in the entire history, because we actually finished third in the league. It's our worst finish since 1995. Despite the manager getting 40 million euros worth of transfers, which is absolutely unthinkable in wartime Ukraine. So the board kept backing the manager. So I think that makes his performances being a standout even more, in my opinion, because it's almost against the odds. He had to basically carry the team by himself in a few games. I think had he stayed in Shakhtar, he would have got even better because our new coach, Arda Turan, is the way he plays is very different. It's a lot more aggressive and counter-pressing football currently, and I think he would have thrived in that system a lot more. But anyway, I'm happy that the transfer went ahead in any case, because I'd say it's a bit of a side point that's not directly relevant to Kevin, but for Shakhtar, it was really important to get a sale to a top European club. And personally, I consider Fulham as a top European club because I strongly believe you guys last year, you were quite close to challenging for Europe. And also in the game against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup, which I watched, you should have closed it in the first 20 minutes. You just didn't take your chances and got punished for it, essentially.
Yeah.
So I really think a top half, in my opinion, a top half Premier League club is an elite top club, in my opinion. And the problem is, we haven't sold a Brazilian player for a big amount of money since Fred to Man United in, I believe, 2018. So this is the first big sale of a Brazilian player. And also we had, I think, an absolute fiasco with Mykhailo Mudryk and his transfer to Chelsea because he became a victim of the price tag, obviously, but it would make other clubs more conscious about purchasing players from Shakhtar if, obviously our biggest ever sale turns out to be a flop. So for us, it was very important to sell someone for a good amount, and hopefully for this player to thrive in the new environment and to become a great player and show that, yes, Shakhtar can still sell very talented Brazilians, come and buy them from us. So I think, that's why there is a bit of an argument with among the Shakhtar fan base whether we should have sold him or not. My view has always been if a good offer comes in, then a player should be sold, because that's how a business model works. And it's worth remembering that he would have probably depreciated in value, because the value of a player only goes up if he performs well in Champions League, which he did last year. This year we're only playing in Conference League, and he could score 5 goals every game, but it will not make top clubs go for him, in my opinion. So that's something worth noting. So going back directly to Kevin, I've seen that some fans were quite unimpressed with his goals to assist ratio, which is fair enough. He hasn't scored as much or assisted that much, but quite a few times, to be honest, he did get unlucky. He hit the post, or maybe had a teammate miss an absolute sitter. So that's something worth keeping in mind.
Okay.
And something I want to mention about him is that he developed incredibly quickly. So if we take Willian, who, well, I think Kevin today took number 22, did he? Same as
Yes.
Willian when he came to England. So, and I think, Jack, I saw you mentioning on Twitter that Kevin even admitted to these comparisons to Willian, that they're sort of similar in the way they play, right? Am I right?
It was part of the interview with the club. Who I don't think Kevin can speak English at this moment, so there was some subtitles and like an AI generated voice that was over Kevin for this interview, and he mentioned having similar traits to Willian, his speed and getting shots away and the final product in the final third. And that's really exciting. And I think because he is, you looked at his Instagram and he's number 11, and we already have a number 11 in Adama Traore, which is an interesting one because the window is still open in the foreign markets. Adama Traore still could potentially leave the club without any. I don't have any insight or intel on that, but it's just an opinion that he could still leave. And I wonder then if he takes the 11. But to emulate Willian and have 22. It almost feels as if he's going to be following in the footsteps of Willian when he first joined. I think it was Chelsea in England from Shakhtar, and it was because he went to Arsenal and Fulham in England as well. He was unbelievable at Chelsea, an unbelievable player, and was still unbelievable at Fulham as well. So we're really hoping that Kevin can hit the ground running. He's 22. He's going to be 23 next year, and it felt as if, like, looking at his stats at the start of this season, 5 games, 5 goals, 2 assists. It feels like maybe this is going to be the best season of Kevin yet, which is why we're so excited to have him, because he started so well. It's not like he's had no pre-season. It's not like he's had, he has to gain fitness. He has to get up to speed ahead of the Premier League. I think come the Leeds game next Saturday, 10 days or so, if he's in the starting 11, it wouldn't surprise me. I think he'll probably be on the bench, just from my personal opinion. But if he's in the starting 11, I think everyone's going to be so excited. And already 5 goals. So he's technically in form. He's in form and he's come to Fulham and he just needs to kick on now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think something I want to add about this as well is that you mentioned Willian just now, and it took Willian 6 years to develop from a raw prospect to a world-class player for us when we sold him he first went to Anji in Russia, and then he went to Chelsea, but he stayed there for a short amount of time. So for the sake of simplicity, let's just say he went to Chelsea. It took him 6 years. What I find remarkable about Kevin is he developed, again, from a very raw prospect who looked shaky in his debut to undoubtedly the team leader and by far the most talented player. It took him 18 months. And to be honest with you, I've never seen a Brazilian player develop so quickly for us. And this is why I think he's such a special talent in many ways. Because, mind you, we had so many good players. We had Fernandinho, we had Willian, we had Douglas Costa, who went to play in Bayern, Alex Teixeira, who was one step away from Liverpool and then went to China to chase the money. And honestly, it took them quite a bit of time. Even you have players like who are less familiar. Maybe some of the audience is familiar with Bernard, who played for Everton for a bit in England. It took him 5 years to become a starter. So to become a starter in a club like Shakhtar, it's where, okay, the league is perhaps not as competitive, but to become a starter and perform very well in Champions League, I think is why Fulham fans should be excited, because he will need time to adapt, no question. He won't be scoring hat tricks in his debut, but I think he will adapt much faster than other Brazilian players usually do. So that's also something worth noting. Something I want to say about Kevin is everyone has watched the highlights by now, I'm sure, but I think something that stands out for me is his creativity and bravery, because, and again, I saw it in one of your posts, I think, where he mentioned that he likes to beat his man one-on-one, and that's how all Shakhtar fans know him, and that's how we remember him, because Kevin always tries to beat his man when he's isolated one-on-one, and even takes on two players sometimes quite successfully. But also he does not get intimidated very easily. So if he plays against a tough guy, centre back or a wing back who tries to bully him, gets tackled, perhaps even if it's a poor challenge, he does not get intimidated. If he gets tackled and dispossessed 9 times, 10th time he will try again. He'll probably dribble and score a goal. And also something regarding this as well is that he's built up quite a lot of muscle mass during his time at Shakhtar. So I think it will be very important in the Premier League not to get bullied by very big wing backs or centre backs, depending on where he plays, obviously. I think that's very important. And in addition to this, it's just the great finishing that he has as well. Again, he was very raw when he arrived, but his finishing is top level now. On my page on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I reposted the post from Shakhtar's official page where they just showed a recording, like highlights of all his goals, basically, that he scored. And I urge Fulham fans to go back and watch that video, because, yeah, of course, like some of the goals are him just dribbling past players and putting it in because of the poor level of defending. But some of the goals are unbelievable, like where he gets the ball with his back towards the goal, turns around and puts it in perfectly into bottom right corner. I think it just shows the talent and the technique that he has. But also to do it in Champions League games is completely different. I think I love the example. I mean, poor players don't score against Bayern, and he had very good acceleration and just basically picked up the ball and went one-on-one and scored, put it perfectly into the bottom right corner ish area. But also in the game against Brest, it's something I'll mention in a second about his work rate, but he's a hard worker, and you could see it in that goal, because the way just passing Brest, I mean our opponents, the way just passing it around the back, a centre back got a poor touch, Kevin flies out of nowhere, picks up the ball, runs and scores. And that's something actually I want to touch on next as well, is that Kevin has an absolutely unbelievable work rate. You know, he has. I looked up some of the stats, and I don't want to mention that he's in like top 1% of all dribblers in Europe, because realistically, he played in Ukraine, and our league level is a lot more poor than it was even 10 years ago, unfortunately. So I don't think it shows much. But in the Champions League game just last season, he had 12 tackles as an attacking winger. And wow. I think it highlights how much he contributes to defense. And also, once again, if any of your viewers have the time, on Shakhtar's page, there is a highlight somewhere of his sliding tackle in the last game we played against Servette. So it was the playoff round for the Conference League qualifiers, and our opponents, Servette, were through on goal after 90 minutes, and wow. Basically their attacker dribbled past the keeper. Mind you, this is on the left wing, so the opposite of where Kevin plays. And out of nowhere, Kevin absolutely flies in, does this very dangerous slide tackle, and just takes the ball out along with the player and stops what is a certain goal. And again, that was his first full match back after the injury, and he just gives it all in every single match. And I think that's why Fulham players, both players and the fans, I suppose, are going to love about him, because you will see him working very hard defensively, making some great tackles, his tackling for an attacking player is absolutely fantastic. And I watch Premier League quite a bit, so obviously I watch Fulham, and I think that's why he fits into Marco Silva's brand of football quite a bit as well. And especially perhaps when you play the top six sides where you probably need to defend a bit more, he's going to be fantastic in that regard.
Sounds so exciting. Because that game
Yeah.
against Servette, I think most Fulham fans were following it because we were thinking, oh, if Shakhtar go through, then maybe he stays because he'll want to play in the European football. And then if they lose, maybe there's more opportunity that he comes to the Premier League. And I think now it's a case of, I think Fulham fans and Shakhtar fans are going to be friends for life over this transfer. Thanks to you and your coverage of it, and thanks to the enthusiasm that you bring towards Kevin. And look, I'm just getting incredibly excited. From my personal point of view, when on the day we signed Kevin, it was such a busy day with so many moving parts. I just wanted the deal to be done, and I haven't really had the time to look through, him as a player, him as a person, and sort of find out more about him until this moment now, where I'm starting to get very, very excited about him. And I think, I think football fans do this a lot in transfer windows. They overanalyze behavior of certain players when they've been linked away. And what we saw from Kevin was that he scored against Servette. They went through, and then in the changing room afterwards, he's happy, he's smiling. And we're all thinking, this doesn't look like a player who's on the verge of leaving the club. And we were thinking, I don't think this is going to happen. And so from the club's point of view, they obviously are a club that benefits from selling players. So when you won that game, in your mind, were you thinking this sale still definitely goes through, or was it a case of, oh, maybe now he'll want to stay? Was it a case of the money was just too important for Shakhtar to turn down? Because I hear that Arda Turan is not happy about selling him, and then another key player as well at the same time.
Yeah, I think you make a good point about that, actually. And something I want to touch about him, what you mentioned about the Servette game and him being happy in the changing room, is just his personality.
Yeah.
Every single time when you see any training, open trainings or videos on the club channels, that's YouTube or X, wherever they post it, always a massive smile, always very happy, always excited. He was actually very unfortunate to be racially abused at one of the qualifiers by Besiktas fans, which is very sad to see. But he just obviously he shared it and he said that he was upset, but his game didn't suffer. The next game he came out and dropped a world-class performance where actually if you it's one of the videos that I as Fulham fans to watch, where he scored in that very game, where he put it in the top right corner. And it's something I love about him. He always has this positive mentality, and it's something. He is a character you want to be around in the changing room. He's always, I think, supportive of his teammates. And something perhaps you might also like is that in Shakhtar, he was the main guy behind the goal celebrations. So the Brazilian players together, they would come before each game and decide what goal celebration they want to do. And there's some quite big highlights of that.
He'll love that with Muniz, I think. Muniz is a bit of a dancer, for sure.
There we go. Yeah, so is Kevin. I've seen Fulham fans share lots of GIFs on X from his goal celebrations and dancing. So I'm sure that will happen. But I think something that's, just to finish the point about his mentality, he comes from playing in a war-torn country where the team traveled by coach everywhere. And even in Europe, where he dropped these fantastic performances, you need to remember the team took 12 hours to get to every Champions League game last year, because from where the team stays, you have to go to Poland for about 7 hours, cross the border, and then take a flight to wherever in Europe we were playing. So I think if you look at how difficult it is to play in those conditions, I mean, as a fan, I've taken a 12-hour coach before, or a 10-hour overnight coach before, and I was in a broken state next day, So for him to come out and have these amazing performances against top tier European sides after having traveled this much is quite telling. And he never complained. He never came out in an interview and said, "Well, it's difficult," but always positive, always, "Yes, we can do it. We can beat the opponents." And that's just says a lot about who he is as a person, to sort of go through and play in such difficult conditions. That's really good, I think. And I can guarantee to Fulham fans that he will be committed until the very end to Fulham, because if you think about it, quite late on in the transfer window, does he stay, does he go? It was kind of a bit up in the air. And I think he wanted to move to Fulham, which is obviously natural. It's a step forward in his career. And you saw, so I think if he pulled out of the game and came toward our coach, and was like, look, boss, I'm sorry, but if I get injured today, my move to Fulham will be ruined. It's my dream to play in England. Sorry, I don't want to play. And you saw that with Eberechi Eze when he moved to Arsenal. He basically pulled out last minute from Crystal Palace's game. Yeah. But
and it's not, and we can think of many other examples. Isak and Visser, players who have basically gone on strike to almost force the move, and that move didn't even get done till deadline day, just like Kevin. And I think Kevin's gone about it in a very good way, where we saw he was injured. We were all like, oh no, are we signing an injured player? He comes back, he plays against Servette, he has an outstanding game, gets, I think, man of the match. And then we're all like, oh my God, we've got to get this player. And from a Fulham perspective, who broke the transfer record last season for Emil Smith-Rowe, to break it again, which, to be fair, I probably would have expected Fulham to do that if we want to push on. But to break the record and get this guy, Kevin, who I hadn't heard of before we were linked with him, and a lot of Fulham fans hadn't heard of him, but I think we've instantly just fallen in love with him. And I think that Marco Silva is going to get the best out of him in the Premier League, and he's going to continue his form. My question I wanted to ask you is, from a Shakhtar Donetsk perspective, a 25% sell-on clause is incredibly encouraging, because if you think about it, a player who's signed for 40 million euros plus 5 million euros in add-ons, you'd expect Fulham will want to gain a profit from that 2, 3, 4 years down the line. Who knows, right? And let's just say I put a number out on my live stream on deadline day and said he goes for 80 million. Which do you think is, one, doable, and two, then that means Shakhtar will get 20 million pounds from that sale, which will help the club enormously. So do you think Shakhtar have put themselves in a really good position regarding a resale of Kevin? And I know he's just joined, he hasn't even played for us yet. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but from a Shakhtar perspective, that must be important.
Absolutely essential. Yes, definitely. And we as a club, whenever we sell, we love to put sell-on clauses. So we just sold Sudakov for, who's another talented player. He plays a sort of a number 10. We sold him to Benfica, and we sold him below what we actually wanted, but because we got such a generous 25% sell-on fee, I think that went ahead. And my understanding of the transfer is that when the first negotiation started between Shakhtar and Fulham came out and said, look, guys, we'll offer you 40 million euros. You'll get however much in bonuses, no sell-on clause. And that was the main problem, I think, why the transfer wasn't done earlier, because I think we realized that barring a terrible injury, I think the board at Shakhtar realized that if Kevin keeps performing like this, but does it at the level of Premier League, the big boys will be after him very soon.
Yeah,
probably as early as 1 or 2 years, you'll be fighting off offers from Real Madrid and Chelsea and the likes of probably 90 to 100 million. And whatever money we get from that is absolutely essential, because every penny we get, we reinvest into new Brazilian talent, which is just the way the club works, really. And we are well known for developing and selling very talented Brazilian players. So I think getting that 25% sell-on clause was essential for us. And I'm really happy that Fulham also saw this. And basically the clubs could agree to a deal, which I think is great.
Fantastic. I mean, because, some Fulham fans in my comments and what we're saying on stream is, 25%, that's quite a lot. And I was thinking, if you think about the context and you think about Shakhtar and the position they're in on a global scale, that is really important to them. And I think that negotiation that they were really, delaying the transfer because of, and were really insistent. And I'm really pleased that Fulham finally agreed to it, because I think that's really important for the club going forward. We remember, of course, Manuel Solomon when he went from Shakhtar to Fulham, and that was again another transfer that went on and on and on, and in the end it ended up being a loan. And then he's gone now to Spurs, and then to Leeds, and now at Villarreal. He moved on deadline day, which is quite extraordinary. Another question I wanted to ask you was, we were all here on deadline day. We were all waiting for the transfer. We all, I was hearing good things. He was in London. We all knew that he was having a medical the day before deadline day, and then suddenly a rumor appeared: Sporting Lisbon, who are Champions League, right? The Champions League club, come calling. Do you think there was any substance to that? I remember seeing your tweet at the time saying, I think he still goes to Fulham, and I got very excited by that. And I think everyone got excited by that. But was there any doubt in your mind that maybe there was a chance that, one, Kevin would want Champions League football, two, the transfer could break down because of that, and three, well, I suppose that's the two questions really.
So first of all, I just want to state that I'm not an in-the-know journalist. I'm just a university student who runs the blog Minus Weekly for fun. So I just operate on the facts that are in the public domain. And I sat down and had to think about it when the Sporting news broke out. By the way, I think Sporting Lisbon were definitely after Kevin. I think they probably did end up coming with some sort of offer. But if you just look at the facts, Fulham have been... So first of all, Fulham were very close to agreeing on personal terms with Kevin at that point already. The clubs had agreed a long time ago on the fee for the player. And, well, I think it was widely reported that he had already arrived in London. The facts I see on Sporting Lisbon side is, one, Kevin. So they're obviously interested in Kevin, but fact number one, they never paid more than 25 million for a player. That is their transfer record fee. So I'm currently led to believe that on the deadline day, out of nowhere, Sporting see that Kevin has some minor disagreements about his contract, and they go, oh, well, it's time to offer almost twice what we paid ever, the most for another player. We're going to offer it now on the transfer deadline day. I found it very hard to believe. And I went to the original article. I think it was Abola who broke it, who are very, very reliable when it comes to
credible.
Portuguese football or Brazilian players generally. And what they said is, I think I had to put it through Google Translate, obviously, but it said something along the lines of Sporting have offered a sum to Shakhtar, but it didn't say that the offer was accepted. It didn't say about the structure, how much of it was bonuses, how much of it was going to be paid up front, and that type of stuff. So obviously there was, I saw further tweets from a Portuguese guy with 3,000 followers on X, which he might be a journalist, he might be credible or reliable, I don't know, but he was very full on pushing it, saying, "Oh, Kevin doesn't want to go to Fulham. He completely gave up on the idea. He only wants Sporting. It's either Sporting or back to Shakhtar." And I was thinking, this is just complete nonsense. You're telling me a player is flying to London, does his medical, just to give up on it last minute, to fly and to give up on Sporting. I think that's incredibly unlikely. But I think another important thing, and that's probably one of the biggest factors that made me conclude that Kevin will go to Fulham, is that Shakhtar never do deadline day deals. So obviously this was a deadline day deal, but pardon?
Fulham do deadline day deals.
Yeah. But what I mean by this is, obviously Fulham started negotiations way before, and they were concluded on the deadline day. Yeah. But we do not do negotiations that come in on the deadline day. In 2018, Crystal Palace were interested in our captain Taras Stepanenko, and we rejected the offer. And CEO publicly came and said out. He publicly came out and said that yes, there was an offer for our player. The finances were good, but we rejected it because we think that when the clubs do this offer us money on the deadline day, they're not being serious, they're not well prepared, and there just simply isn't enough time to get everything done. So we rejected this offer, and from now on we'll reject everything. So that was that again, and I didn't think the club would change their mind on this, because it's the same management as we've had for the past 20 years. So yeah, in summary, Shakhtar don't do deadline deals. Kevin was already completing. He's already completed his medical in Fulham, and the sources from Portugal, non-credible sources, actually said there was any agreement between either the player and the club, or Shakhtar and Sporting. So it made me conclude that I don't want to be accusatory of people because I don't know what happened, but it is well known that a lot of times agents can use this as a bargaining chip. Sometimes if they
Absolutely.
and they might not even do it on purpose. They might just call one of their sources and be like, look, we're not really getting to an agreement here, it's a bit difficult, and the source reports it, and then maybe someone from Sporting sees, Shakhtar are not the move might not happen, Kevin might not move to Fulham, and then they call up the agent, and he's like, yeah, we're still negotiating, and then obviously the agent receives the call from Sporting, and then he can come to Fulham and say, look, there's the guy from Sporting who called me, he offered me this much, you guys better match it. Not saying this is what happened, but it's a very possible hypothetical scenario. So it could be just agents games, or maybe it is what happened, but at the end of the day, I was from the moment the news about Sporting broke out, I just knew it's not going to happen for the reasons I described.
It's very, very interesting, and these things happen a lot on deadline day. But from all the noises I was getting, and Fabrizio Romano, who I actually believe throughout the last couple of days of the window seemed to be behind in the transfer between Kevin to Fulham. From all the information I was getting, and look, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm anything better than Fabrizio. I'm a young journalist in the game, but I believe when he said things like, "Oh, he arrived at 9 p.m. in London," I believe that wasn't the case. I believe it was earlier on in the day, and he was slightly behind. However, he then, of course, dropped the "Here we go" on deadline day, which made everyone sit back and go, right, this is happening. All that news and all that noise from Sporting Lisbon was just noise, and we're able to get the deal done, which we did, which is incredibly exciting. Now, another question I want to put to you is about the potential of a good season for Kevin. Is there a question where he could be involved in the Brazil squad? Or is there a chance he can get in the Brazil squad at any point this season? And if he impresses, does that maybe potentially lead to a place in the squad for the World Cup? Because, of course, the Premier League, biggest league in the world, a lot of eyes are going to be on him. A lot of attention is going to be on him. It happened to Andreas Pereira, Rodrigo Muniz. They have since joined Fulham. Oh, sorry, Muniz. I don't think Muniz has ever been in the squad, but I can't actually remember if Muniz has been in the squad. I know that Pereira has definitely been in the squad because of the move to Fulham and not because of the move, but his form at Fulham. So would Kevin, do you think, could he be in with a shout?
It's a very interesting question because Brazil obviously have a new manager in. I believe Carlo Ancelotti ended up joining them as a national team manager.
So yeah,
I remember reading about it, and you'll have to wait and see for obviously not this international break, but the one afterwards to see if Kevin will be in the selection. I haven't actually seen the squad selection, but obviously they have so many talented players capable of playing on as a left winger, like Lucas Paqueta, Rafinha, Martinelli. You could even argue that Richarlison and João Pedro could also play left
Rodrigo
wing. So
on the right as well. So
without a doubt, yeah. So
unbelievable.
it depends with that depth. It just depends on what the manager wants. However, if you look at Lucas Paqueta, he started getting calls up to the Brazil squad after performing exceptionally for West Ham. And I think this is when any Brazil manager looks at the squad, he does not necessarily expect a player to play for a top club. But if you play in a very strong league like the Premier League or La Liga or Bundesliga, and if you perform to a very top level for a mid-table or an upper mid-table club, then the interest will be there for sure. So to be honest with you, it's just very hard to predict. If he has an incredible season and if Carlo Ancelotti wants that type of player in his team, then of course he will get called up. But I think we'll need to see how Brazil also play under Ancelotti. Maybe he switches up tactics and does not play conventional wingers, or maybe he plays some sort of 4-4-2 we just don't know yet. So it's hard to predict, and we'll have to wait and see, really. But speaking logically, I think I can imagine this happening. If he has an incredible season, then very much so he could be in the squad, and you guys will have people to cheer on in the World Cup.
It'd be amazing. We love it when Fulham players are playing in a European Championships or a World Cup. I remember Mitrovic. You know, when Mitrovic was at the club, we were in love with Serbia, and we would watch them every time they play. If Mitrovic was playing, and it's the same for a lot of our players when they play at international level. Harry Wilson for Wales as well. We're so excited. We needed wide options. Marco Silva said we needed 2 wide options. We brought in Kevin and Samuel Chukwueze. Just on we're 3 games into the Premier League, so he's going to have 35 games to perform at the Premier League level. Plus, there's the League Cup we're still in and the FA Cup. So there's still minimum 37 more games that he can be involved with for Fulham. What's your prediction in terms of output, in terms of goals, assists? He just said in the interview he wants to score loads of goals. He wants to provide loads of assists. We're really excited. So what's your prediction?
I mean, when you pay a club transfer fee, you expect the player to be a superstar and come in and perform straight away, which is completely normal. And things like injuries are impossible to predict. However, I know that he's not an injury-prone player. He missed very few games, so I think that isn't a concern. My prediction is genuinely, I think for the first couple of games he might struggle,
Okay.
just because it's a completely different ball game. It's a different league, the best league in the world, in my opinion, and it is a big step up. So I think he will take a couple of games to adjust, and if the fans don't turn on him and keep supporting him, I think perhaps around November, December time, you can probably expect him to be fully integrated, understanding how to play and really get behind it. I think something very important in his development will be Marco Silva, because I respect his tactics and the way he plays as a manager, but he also speaks Portuguese. And it is so essential for every single young Brazilian player you see out there. You need like a father figure to them. And I really think that Marco Silva can be that. And please do not underestimate how important it is to be able to talk to the manager in your first language, especially while you're still picking up learning English. I still think Kevin understands, his understanding of English is good. He can probably speak some English, but not at the level where he can do press conferences yet. I'm sure he will learn quickly. But having not only the manager but also Muniz to help him settle in, it's going to make the process much faster. So for what it's worth, I may be wrong. He maybe comes out in the next home game and scores a hat trick and becomes a superstar and has an all-timer season. I don't know. But my prediction is I would just ask all Fulham fans to remain patient, because Brazilians do need a bit of time to adapt, and just be patient with him and he'll be amazing for you. I can assure you of that.
I think that the culture around football fans, I wouldn't just say just Fulham fans, I would say all football fans, especially in England, is one of, this is just my personal opinion, like really impatient about, Isak has joined Liverpool, they're expecting him to score a ton of goals, etc., etc. A player like Kevin comes for a record fee, and Fulham fans are going to expect him to perform and justify his transfer fee. And if that obviously doesn't happen in the first couple of games, like you say, or first couple of months, like you say, I urge patience. And the problem is that, Fulham fans and football fans can quickly point the finger if performances are not good enough. And I really hope that doesn't happen with Kevin. And I really hope it doesn't happen with Chukwueze and all the other new signings, or the other signing we've made. JKA, I call him because that's his initials. So I think Fulham fans are going to be patient. He's still young. He's still raw. He hasn't had any experience in England. The Premier League is a physical league. It's a fast league. I think he's going to adapt well. And I hope that the Fulham fans, and I'm speaking directly to the Fulham fans right now, give him the patience. Don't get on his back. If he has one bad game, it doesn't mean he's a bad player. And I think a lot of football fans sort of come to conclusions very, very quickly about players based off a couple of performances. Alex Iwobi was a player who joined the club and everyone was a bit like, really? And he's actually been very, very, very good. The same with Rodrigo Muniz, and that's taken Rodrigo Muniz time, if you want to, reference it to another Brazilian player. He took ages to actually get up to speed. He had a loan. It didn't work out on loan in Middlesbrough. He came back and then he's winning Player of the Month in the Premier League. I mean that. And, if someone told me in a year's time Kevin would have won Player of the Month in the Premier League for Fulham, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm really excited. I'm so excited. Should we get on to talk about the Europa League game between Fulham and Shakhtar?
Absolutely. Yes, unfortunately, I think it's something we should definitely discuss. We also obviously have a bit of a shared history with the club. So we, for those of you who might not remember, our two clubs faced each other in round of 32 in the first season of Europa League when it turned from UEFA Cup in 2009-2010, which was, I believe, a fantastic season for Fulham because you guys made it to the final that year. And for us, not so much because it was at the time when if you win UEFA Cup or Europa League, you don't directly qualify to the Champions League group stage. So we got drawn against Timișoara, which is a Romanian side. Very unexpectedly lost to them and then dropped down to the Europa League, aced our group, and then ended up facing Fulham in the round of 32. So I will say what I think about it, obviously, but Jack, I want to hear your opinion because I think you mentioned that you were actually in the stadium as a kid in the first game. So just want to hear, obviously, your perspective as a Fulham fan. How did you find it? How was it for you that night?
Yeah, you know what? That night is quite incredible because it was the only game I went to in that Europa League campaign. I was 11 years old. I was really young. I was in year 6. I was ready. I was in the last year of primary school, going up to secondary school, and Fulham were at the best form of their life, the best things they've ever achieved in my life, supporting Fulham. But I was too young to appreciate it. Whilst I was excited about being in Europe and stuff like that, it was, if this was now, this would be extraordinary, and I'd be at every game, and I'd be traveling all over Europe to follow and cover Fulham. But so this game was, I believe it was in like March or February maybe, and so I was 11, and I remember my younger brother. I think I went with my younger brother and my dad and my dad's friend and his son who support Fulham, and they got us into supporting Fulham as well. And it was my brother's first ever game of seeing Fulham in the flesh, first ever live game, and we were sat in the Johnny Haynes stand. So we were sat the main stand to my right hand side, and we were just great view of the goal on that side. And in those days, the away fans in Europe were in the Johnny Haynes stand as well on the other side, all the way down the end. So I couldn't see them. I could hear them because they were nice and loud. But all I remember a few things about the game. I remember Adriano, who scored. He went round the keeper and scored, I seem to remember. And he was wearing yellow boots or pink boots, like a very flamboyant color of boots that was very distinctive. And the other two things I remember was, of course, the Fulham goals. One with Zoltan Gira coming, I think, only just a minute and a half into the game. It was very, very early. And we were like, oh my God, we're 1-0 up. Then they score, which of course is the away goal. Shakhtar equalised the away goal, and the advantage is with them. And then, of course, the ball falls to Bobby Zamora on the turn. I remember seeing it distinctly, looking at it on the turn, and I don't want to rub it in, obviously, because you're a Shakhtar fan. And he turns and he hits it, and it goes in off the crossbar. And that's all I remember from the game. And I remember going home thinking, wow, that was so fun. And then, of course, the second leg I watched at one of my mum's friend's house, because I think it might have been like an early kickoff, like a 6 o'clock kickoff or something, UK time. And Hangeland also, scored the goal, the header. Murphy got sent off. I've got the video of that season on DVD. I've watched it a few times. So my memories of that game was my first ever European night supporting Fulham. I hope it's not going to be one of the only European nights I've ever seen Fulham play in. I want us to get Europe, and I want Kevin to be involved with that. But it was a very special night, and I think, a very memorable one because, of course, that led up to the Juventus, game, and then Wolfsburg, and then Hamburg, and then the final. But knocking out the holders, Shakhtar, was a real statement at the time. And Fulham, who had, done okay in their group and just about scraped through against Basel, suddenly we've knocked out Shakhtar and we've got Juventus and all these massive, massive teams. It was the most incredible run. ever, it still spoke about, the streets will never forget that 2010 Fulham team, and Roy Hodgson is an absolute legend at Fulham. And I know that obviously that must have been a painful night for Shakhtar Donetsk to lose to Fulham, because I reckon that you probably would have been favourites going into it. But I want to thank Shakhtar for giving us the best memories, a Fulham fan could ask for.
To be honest, you almost made it sound like we gifted it to you, but
no, of course not.
That.
Of course not. No,
certainly deserved it. I think in that first match, with the first goal that went in, our goalkeeper should have saved that. So our goalkeeper Piatov, who is a club legend, arguably the best goalkeeper we've had, he had this tendency where he would make 5-6 unbelievable saves, and then he would make a very silly error, and it was one of them. It was a powerful shot, but it was right under him. So if he had dived a bit faster, he should have been saving that, and he went off him into the goal. That game was crazy. Also, I thought once Adriano scored, because I remember so many games so distinctly as a child. I didn't have the best time in school, to be honest, and Shakhtar games were the main thing that were cheering me up. So I remember lots of games very clearly, and I remember thinking when Adriano scored, I was just thinking, okay, we got our away goal back in the day when it was a rule, so let's just see out the game. And then, to be honest with you, I've watched pretty much every game, I'd say, since 2006. I'd say it's probably the best goal ever scored against us to this day, I think.
Really?
Because first time, there were like some other great goals obviously scored by other players. Like even last year, Elise dribbled past the entire team and scored quite a nice goal. But I think it's just, you expect sometimes a talented player to pick up the ball, dribble past the entire team. I think Alvaro Recoba against us when he played for Inter in 2005 also did this sort of thing where he dribbled past the team and scored a great goal. But I think it was quite far away, maybe 20-30 meters, Zamora, and he hit it first time as well. So you're thinking, and the power in it was outrageous as well. So I think it's just the combination of expectation and reality, because when a player shoots there, you expect it to go all the way, up. And the funny thing is, in the second game, he wasn't too far from scoring another outrageous goal, because I think he was about maybe 40 meters out, and then our goalkeeper was caught kind of in no man's land. So he tried to not chip it, but directly shoot it, and it went maybe just very, very close to the crossbar, and it was quite a scary moment. But yeah, I remember that game. But the second game is what I remember, even more for all the wrong reasons, because actually, jumping topics a bit, I remember reading Roy Hodgson's interview on The Athletic a few years ago, and he says to this day, that Shakhtar team that came to Craven Cottage is the best team he faced. And I was like, wow, because this guy managed England, managed Palace, he played so
Liverpool.
many great teams. Liverpool, of course. Yeah, how could I forget? Yeah. So he coached great teams. He played against top world opposition. And to say that to this day, the fact that he thinks that we are the best team he played, it really means a lot coming from a football legend. So that was quite nice to hear. But in the second game I remember the most, I remember it being absolutely freezing at the match. And I looked back at the stats. We had 24 shots on target and just one goal to show for it.
Oh my God.
And some players just missed absolute sitters. Like Judson at the start of the game should have scored. He just missed it from the position where he usually scores from. But also Schwarzer was unbelievable in that game. He turned into prime Buffon, I think. I remember thinking, we probably should sign him instead of who we have. And your guys' goal came out of nowhere, really, because to be honest, historically, we're very poor with defending set pieces. To this day, we still struggle with it. And it was another Piatov error, because you guys put across to Hungerland, and then Piatov kind of stepped in to intercept it and then started backtracking. And I think that's the worst thing you can do as a goalkeeper, because even if you don't think you'll get there, because you get so close, you kind of start interfering with the player, and it will be harder to do a header. But then basically because of that, he left the goal completely open, and then it was an easy header and a goal. And then, that was very unfortunate. And we deservedly scored on 60 minutes, and I was thinking, okay, maybe we could go through. But arguably we should have had a penalty, because I think it hit the elbow of the player. Obviously, it wasn't in the VAR era, so the ref made us go, and he stuck with it. And then, yeah, maybe it's how would I say? It was a payback what happened in the Chelsea game with the VAR for that goal. I'm joking, of course. That was an outrageous goal,
Brilliant.
by the way. Yeah,
That still stings now. Yeah.
yeah. It's just I don't know how you can look at it and think it's a foul, but a whole different story. But yeah, there was no excuse for us not to score twice. When you take 24 shots on target, you only have yourself to blame. Just saying because Rev didn't give you a penalty is not good enough. And as a Shakhtar fan myself, and as lots of Shakhtar fans who I spoke to, everyone was supporting you guys in the final against Atletico.
Wow.
Because if you lose to the future winners, you're like, okay, yeah, we lost to a
Yeah.
team that's probably not as good as us, but they won, so that's okay. But also, it was a real fairy tale. It was one of those you don't get that very often in football in these days that you have a massive underdog coming through, making so many upsets. The teams as you said, you beat were absolutely unreal. Like Juventus, Shakhtar, and Hamburg, they're really top clubs, So to go past them was truly fantastic. So I think that's worth a lot. And I'm just so sorry you guys couldn't bring home the trophy. If I remember, you conceded the losing goal in the extra time as well, which is just so
116th
unfortunate.
minute or something like that, like 4, and it was a really bad one. It was a deflection and it just went beyond the key. But I still, to this day, I've only watched it back a handful of times. I know some Fulham fans who've never watched it back because it hurts too much. And yeah, Diego Forlan is not our biggest. We certainly won't be sending him any Christmas cards any year because yeah. But that was a team which had De Gea, Forlan, Aguero, like all these top players. So we did very well to go right to the end. And I reckon, and a lot of Fulham fans say this, if it went to penalties, I think we would have won. And you look at all these teams now. West Ham have won a European trophy. Crystal Palace are in the Conference League. They won the FA Cup, which sort of reminds me of that sort of underdog story that you speak about. You don't want to. You're almost happy to lose to the winners because they go on and win it, like Palace did when they beat us last season in the quarterfinal. And yeah, it was just the most magical run. And I know people who went to the final. I know people who went to all the big games, and they say it was one of the best memories of their life. And let's hope we see you at Craven Cottage at some point this season. So in terms of the dynamic now that Kevin's obviously gone to Fulham, obviously you're a Shakhtar fan, you're a one club man, you're only going to support your team, right? But are you at least going to, maybe look at Fulham and turn on their tweet notifications or their goal alerts on apps and stuff and follow Fulham because of Kevin?
I don't think it would just be goal notifications. If it doesn't clash with Shakhtar games, I will be 100% watching every game if I have time, obviously. Because for me, it's personal. Honestly, he's my favorite player that played for us since Douglas Costa. So for about 12 years, and it's a personal view. It's a personal preference. Lots of fans said he wouldn't have made that team from 2012, 2013. I think he would have not looked out of place in that legendary team for sure. And I said on my post, which somehow got 200,000 views on X, which is unbelievable for Shakhtar. But I said it's the second time I cried when a player left, because in 2005 we had a Nigerian forward, Julius Agahowa, and he went to Wigan Athletic, and I loved him as a child. I was absolutely obsessed. Posters in the room, everything. So it was very hard to accept. And yeah, I did shed a tear, to be honest, because it just is a magical player, Kevin, and he brought so many good moments in the season that I want to forget and erase from my life. He is the only bright part that I want to remember. As I said, always with a smile, always working hard, always doing his best for the team. And yeah, so without a doubt, I'll be tuning in, watching, arguing with Fulham fans if they are being a bit impatient, just saying give him a bit of time.
Yeah, you've got to be.
I'll be on his side.
Got to be defending him, because I do, again, like I said earlier, I do envisage a scenario where I'm seeing tweets saying Kevin's not good enough, blah blah blah. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's hope he absolutely smashes it, and I'm sure he's going to smash it. But like I said, what football fans are like, very impatient. And you mentioned to me, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, you mentioned to me earlier today that you're planning on coming to the cottage in October. Look, whatever we can do to obviously make that happen, and obviously I'm happy to book you a ticket on my account and get you in. Where would you want to sit? In the Hammersmith end with all the Fulham fans, in the Riverside with the nice view, the Johnny Haynes with the rustic sort of view of the cottage with the wooden seats, or the Putney end where you're right next to the away fans? And we've got to get loads of people to meet up with you, and we should have a pint or something to eat and talk Kevin, Shakhtar, and Fulham.
Thank you so much for this invitation. Look, I've been to Craven Cottage before, actually, and I think it's probably the most unique ground I've ever been to. Just because, it's I really like the little cottage you have in the corner with the changing rooms. Johnny Haynes' stand is fantastic because I think it's still got wooden benches to this day, which you don't really see much in football. And obviously, the Riverside stand is it's one of those modern structures, I guess. But the Hammersmith stand is also quite cool, I think, because it's like one of those single tier stands, which goes quite a bit high up. So it's a unique stadium, and I'd love to visit, honestly, to cheer on Kevin, cheer on Fulham. It would be great. And I also want to say a massive thank you to all the Fulham fans who I've interacted with over the last couple of days, because sometimes I had to try hard to prove my point that the transfer will happen. But the number of support I received, number of messages saying thank you so much for telling us it will happen, and so many fans actually said that so it wasn't just Roy Hodgson who said it. Lots of fans said that Shakhtar are still the best team they've seen play at the Cottage ever. And lots of fans wish Shakhtar all the best for the remainder of the season. So look, if anyone who I interacted with is tuning in and listening, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. I did not expect to receive such an overwhelmingly positive response from everyone. So thank you. And I will be taking up on your offer as well, and I'll try to visit.
We'll make it happen 100%. I mean, there's a couple of home games in October, I believe, Arsenal and Wolves. So, take your pick. I mean, Arsenal's obviously going to be a great game. Maybe if you want to see a Fulham win and maybe Kevin getting a little bit more opportunity to score, I'm not assuming anything, but the Wolves game might be the preference. But then again, we've beaten Arsenal 2 seasons ago at Craven Cottage. We drew to them last season. So you just never know. I have to say, I've sat here many times speaking with people, interviewing them, and obviously this has been like a two-way interview, and this is going to go up on your Substack, which everyone should definitely follow up at a link in the YouTube description for that. And this is going to go up on my YouTube and Patreon. I'm going to clip it up for Twitter and hopefully get a few more accounts to repost that as well, so everyone gets to hear the story about Kevin and your story about Shakhtar Donetsk and supporting Shakhtar Donetsk. And what I'll say is, this has been, for me, sat here for the last 57 minutes, one of my favorite videos I've ever made. I'm so excited. I'm so pleased about Kevin. I'm so grateful for your support of Kevin at Fulham and your coverage of the deal. I know you say you're not in the know, but in terms of your insight, and I'm so pleased that the transfer got done, and I'm so pleased that we are going to now enter, I'm guessing, a beautiful friendship over this player, over these two clubs. And I think everyone in the comments of the YouTube should give you a follow on Twitter and Substack and give you all the love in the comments. Dima, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I know it's your podcast, so do you want to see us out? Yeah,
thanks very much, Jack. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and it's really nice that you want to learn about Kevin more, and you talk. I position myself as a match-going fan podcast, so I watch the players obviously every week. So it's nice for you to sort of invite me and share my opinion with you. So it's fantastic to be here, and it's a great opportunity for me as well to sort of express myself to Fulham's audience, because I've currently interacted mostly with Shakhtar fans, maybe arguing with some opposition fans, with our rivals Dynamo Kiev. But it's great to be able to speak to English audience, and absolutely fantastic. Thank you for the opportunity. And in the Arsenal game, if he's not injured, Kevin will score or assist. That's my prediction. So you can call me out in 5 weeks time if I get it wrong, but I think that's what's going to happen. So
I hope so.
That'll be me. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks very much.
Do you want to just see out the podcast and say to your listeners, thanks for listening, and then I'll just click off of the record.
Brilliant. Yeah. Mine is weekly. My followers, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening in and tuning in. This is by far the most exciting episode I've done, because currently up to this day, it's just been me doing deep dives into our best seasons and just chatting into the microphone about my opinions, which are sometimes strong, but it's fantastic to have collaborated with Jack. And if you guys want to follow Fulham, just to follow to see how Kevin does. Jack is fantastic, so please give him a follow on X. And if you really want in-depth information on Fulham, please subscribe to his Patreon. He needs one more follower.
We
so
got it whilst we were recording.
Oh.
So I've hit 250.
250 followers.
But on to the next milestone now. So any support would be massively appreciated.
So please subscribe to him. He is a fantastic journalist. And honestly, if you want to keep up to date with Fulham without having to do too much research, give him a follow. On X, if you have the money and the desire, on Patreon, and you won't be disappointed. So as I check out, thank you very much. And this is my classic phrase. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of your week.